Hi everyone, my name is Austin, and Jim Carrey is one of my favorite comedians ever.
Born James Eugene Carrey, this Canadian-American actor and comedian is best known for his energetic, slapstick performances and face that, much like a piece of clay, could be contorted into various shapes when doing impressions, giving him the nickname Rubberface. Initially doing many stand-up performances in clubs, including opening for Rodney Dangerfield, and appearing in movies like Once Bitten and Peggy Sue Got Married, Carrey's real big break came when he was hired as a cast member for the sketch comedy show In Living Color. Airing from April 15, 1990 to May 19, 1994, Carrey played many characters, most notably Vera DeMilo and Fire Marshal Bill, who were the most recurring and popular characters, as well as impersonated the likes of Jerry Seinfeld, Bill Clinton, Pee Wee Herman, and Vanilla Ice. Needless to say, the show was a huge hit, and Carrey became a big star in the process, and even helped land some of his first really big film roles, even though he was almost considered for movies like Legend and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which would have certainly been something. Anyway, the big film roles would all really jumpstart his movie career, and they all came in one year, and that year was 1994.
And so, with the announcement of his retirement just about a year ago, which Lord only knows if that'll go through or not, I decided, let's take a look at the 3 films that made him a big star. Starting with Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, which is a part of this little double feature with Ace Ventura When Nature Calls. From director Tom Shadyac, starring Carrey alongside Courtney Cox, Sean Young, and many other actors. So with that, let us talk about this film as we start The Summer of Jim.
The plot for the movie goes a little something like this. Tony Montana is a Cuban immigrant who... No, wait, that's not right. Ash Ketchum is a young boy who... No... Jeremiah was a bullfrog, was a good friend of mine. Wait, that's just the opening lyrics to Three Dog Night's Joy to the World. Where are my notes?
That's it?
Okay, here we go. Ace Ventura is an unusual Miami-based detective who specializes in one thing: finding animals ranging from the domestic to the wild ones. He often is mocked by the Miami Police Department for this and struggles to keep the lights on in his apartment, not unlike most hard-boiled detectives. One day, something truly horrible happens. The Miami Dolphins' mascot, Snowflake the Bottlenose Dolphin, is kidnapped just 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, much to the dismay of the Dolphins' owner Riddle, as it's the team's good luck charm. So, Melissa Robinson, the Dolphins' chief publicist, hires Ace to find Snowflake and get the Dolphin back before Super Bowl Sunday, or else running the risk of the team losing the game. Yeah, it's a silly plot, but what did you expect? It's just an excuse to see Jim Carrey be goofy and engage in all sorts of wacky shenanigans, so that's really all the plot you need here. Now then, let's briefly go over the production. I'm going to keep this short, as some of these production segments have been quite lengthy as of recently and have led to some of the reviews getting a little long. So hopefully this won't do that. Anyway, production went like this. James G. Robinson, the CEO and chairman of Morgan Creek Productions, sought in the 1990s to create a comedy that would appeal to a wide audience, as the comedy Stay Tuned didn't appeal to everyone, as all the couch potatoes were too lazy to go to the theater. According to some sources, Jack Bernstein's original screenplay was almost made into the first Ernest P. Worrell flick during the mid-1980s, but due to Ernest creators John R. Cherry III and Coke Sam's getting more scripts than they knew what to do with from Disney, they passed on the pet detective idea in favor of Ernest Goes to Camp. I can't exactly confirm this though, so I take this with a grain of salt. There was originally an intent to make simply a Sherlock Holmes parody and nothing else, with the pet detective angle only coming after screenwriter Bernstein saw a segment on David Letterman involving pet owners, at which point Ace was mostly an absent-minded goofball before Jim Carrey was brought in and rewrote the character to have his character be somewhat competent in spite of his quirks and eccentricities. Originally, Rick Moranis was considered to play Ace, along with another Jim Carrey character we'll get to later in the Summer of Jim, but turned it down in order to do the Flintstones, for which they then also considered Judd Nelson for the role, along with, no joke, Alan Rickman, which I would have paid good money to see that, as that just sounds like the kind of movie that would have gotten a cult following for just how ridiculous that would have been. But that's not all. As Carrey's fellow In Living Color alumni, David Alan Grier, was at one point offered the role, but wasn't interested after he read the script. Adam Sandler wasn't interested, so he said no, which just sounds like a joke given how subpar his comedies have been in recent years. Rob Schneider also said no to the idea, because I guess he thought it would have made more sense if he was a carrot. And, if this is true, Jack Lemmon was interested in playing the character, but was deemed too old to play the character. There were even thoughts of making the character a woman, even using the name Alice Ventura, with the idea of casting Whoopi Goldberg in the role, before eventually dropping the idea, and soon producers took note of Jim Carrey's performance on In Living Color and decided, that's our guy, let's cast him in the lead! Meanwhile, a future co-star of Carrey in the form of Lauren Holly was offered the role of Melissa Robinson, but turned it down, and eventually Courtney Cox was cast. Although future actresses like Téa Leoni, another future Carrey co-star, and Carrie Ann Moss were considered. Note to self, cover The Matrix someday. Moving to Carrey's casting, he did rewrites on the script, and was allowed to improvise on the set by the filmmakers, for which Carrey said, I knew this movie was either going to be something that people went for, or was going to ruin me completely. From the beginning of my involvement, I said the character had to be rock and roll. He had to be the 007 of pet detectives. I wanted to be unstoppably ridiculous, and they let me go wild. He also sought for sequences he found funny, but knew some would be offended by, stating, I wanted to keep the action unreal and over the top. When it came time to do my reaction to Kissing a Man, I wanted it to be the biggest, most obnoxious, homophobic reaction ever recorded. It's so ridiculous it can't be taken seriously, even though it guarantees that somebody's going to be offended. One last thing. The movie cost $15 million to make and was shot during the second quarter of 1993 in Miami, Florida, which explains the man banging the gator in the background after doing some meth and giving the gator a roofie. And with that darkly humorous and terrifying image ingrained in your skull, let's go and talk about the movie. Ace Ventura: Pet Detective is a fantastic movie, and a movie that is one of the best comedies of the 1990s. It's one of Jim Carrey's best, and certainly a movie that most people remember and probably quoted more often than they would like to admit. And that's all due to the fact that, well, Jim Carrey pretty much sells the movie to you like Steve Carell selling a Pepsi. It just works. From the mannerisms, the comedic timing, the facial expressions, Carrey is Ace Ventura, and he's one of the most iconic characters in the entire world. Ace has also provided us the many quotable lines, such as these classics.
What's the matter, Emilio? Afraid I'll make a stink?
Come on! Do not go in there. Woo!
So, animals can sense evil.
This is Carrey bringing his A game, which of course will also be evident as the Summer of Jim continues. Aside from Carrey, Courtney Cox is pretty good as Melissa Robinson, the Miami Dolphins' publicist who hires Ace to find Snowflake, and much like most of the cast, functions as the straight man / audience to Ace's antics. Meanwhile, Sean Young is decent as Lois Einhorn, aka Ray Finkel, who the police detective who you think is a typical hard-ass until you learn the truth, which leads to an offensive yet hilarious parody of the Crying Game. And honestly, with the way that plan works out, it honestly feels kind of reminiscent of pretty much anything that goes down in Florida, which is pretty much the upside down of the United States.
Florida is a vestigial sack.
Also, Tone Loc is pretty good as Emilio, Ace's friend on the force, who is also investigating the Snowflake kidnapping. Plus, Dan Marino does a good job of playing himself, and keep on the lookout for Udo Kier as Ronald Camp, John Capodici as Sergeant Aguado, the late Noble Willingham as the Dolphins owner Riddle, Troy Evans as Roger Redactor, the also deceased David Margulies as the doctor in the asylum Ace goes undercover at, Mark Margolis as Mr. Chickadance, Alice Drummond, the librarian from Ghostbusters, as Mrs. Finkel, Randall Tex Cobb as the gruff man in the opening scene, and the band Cannibal Corpse. The movie also has a pretty good soundtrack, with much of the songs fitting the scenes where they are used. From the score by Ira Newborn to the song Power of Suggestion, it all works, with the latter strangely making me want to recreate the opening scene, but with Davis Matamiya or Takao Matsuki for some reason. Lastly, the movie is very well paced, going from joke to joke without missing a beat, and never going on for too long, which is good because at 86 minutes, it feels just right for a movie like this. In the wrong hands, it would have felt like an eternity.
One eternity later.
So yeah, there's really nothing else to say here other than it's a great movie, and one that's guaranteed to make you laugh and leave you with a smile on your face. When it comes to Ace Ventura: Pet Detective's appeal, it really comes down to basically this. Fans loved it, critics hated it. What does that mean? Well, critically, the film was panned, with some calling it mean-spirited, needlessly raunchy, and homophobic, with the few positive reviews coming from Rita Kempley and Destin Howe of the Washington Post, and critics like Roger Ebert, Stephen Holden, and James Berardinelli giving it negative reviews, with the film even ending up with a Razzie nomination. On the other hand, the film grossed $107.2 million on a budget of $15 million, and gained a cult following among adolescent males, ensuring success regardless of whether critics hated the film or not. And with this movie's success, Morgan Creek soon greenlit a sequel, which was released the following year, in the form of Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, a more than worthy follow-up to the first film, with just as many funny moments as the first.
Do I have something in my teeth?
There was even a TV series, a tradition that we will see a lot of later, and a less than stellar made-for-TV sequel called Ace Ventura Jr. Pet Detective, and there's even been talk of a potential sequel/reboot with Sonic the Hedgehog writers Patrick Casey and Josh Miller attached. So yeah, it was a success, and if Ace Ventura ever returns, I hope Jim Carrey will be there to find missing animals once more, along with enough zaniness to choke a camel.
So that's... Did I have this on my face before? Probably got to shave this morning. Was that thing there before? That thing on my wall? Because I could have sworn there was just plain wall right there. Ah, well, what? Who cares? Anyway, that is Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. It's a great movie, and I highly recommend it. Whether you decide to pick it up on this double feature with Ace Ventura When Nature Calls here on DVD, or you decide to pick it up on Blu-ray, it's a movie that you have got to go see. Yeah, there's some questionable stuff with the transgenders and their portrayal, but Jim Carrey's great in the movie, it's well paced, it's got a nice soundtrack, and it's actually well shot. Overall, it's a movie that you really gotta go see. Otherwise, you'll end up miserable. Like this guy I know, his name is Clayton. But we don't talk about Clayton. So with that, this concludes my review of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. I hope you enjoyed it. Found it entertaining, educational, and made you want to seek out this movie. So, with all that out of the way, tune in next time for when we continue the Summer of Carrey with something that is smoking. But until then, I will catch you later. I'll see you next time.